You mentioned that the idea for this film was loosely based on some non-fiction novels. Could you tell us a little bit about those novels, how you found them, what drew you to them, and how closely to the non-fiction story your film has ended up being?
Actually, this incident took place in 2005, and it was in all the press, so it was very, very popular. And honestly, it was awfully treated by the tabloid press. It was very sensational, and nobody really tried to understand what really happened. People wrote before investigating. So a couple of years later, in 2007, I believe, this lady that was working as a journalist for BBC in Bucharest documented precisely what happened and published a couple of what she called non-fictional novels. And these novels really documented precisely what happened. For a while I didn't touch this subject, even if I was interested in following the case for years and years, because it was so popular that every Romanian director considered making a film, and for a while there was a very old, respected director that wanted to make a film. I thought it's just honest to polite to let him have his chance. And I think 1 year ago or 3 years ago he gave up. It became public that he gave up. And then I ran across this lady again. I had met her quite by accident, the journalist, in 2007 in New York when I was screening 4 months, 3 weeks and 2 days, and she was having a show with a very famous Romanian theater director at La Mama in New York. She had staged her own plays, her own novels into a play. And that was an interesting way of seeing what could, what could be a possible interpretation of the novels. But finally I just decided to free myself from the story, because I thought that I would have much more meaning in the story if I don't have to respect, and I don't think cinema needs to respect reality. I never wanted to have the reenactment of that event, but to find the meaning that would be, somehow useful and would valorize this drama that happened. But the facts are very close to what happened. What's fictional, for example, is the relationship between these two girls. This is an assumption. I know that they were colleagues in the orphanage, but you can't say reading the books that they really cared so much for each other. And what's for sure is that nobody tried to save this girl. I mean, not her girlfriend in any way.
Do you think that it's out of goodwill? Or, I feel like the force of religion is obviously such a motivating factor in this film, in this story, in the reality. Is that the way that you feel? Do you see this film as sort of a critique of organized religion or a critique of religious faith in belief?
I don't think films are meant to criticize anything, so it's not a critique in any way. It's presenting a very complex situation. When I say that they were acting out of goodwill, I think that they were wrong, but they were the only one that did something. And I think they are as guilty and responsible as all the people and institutions that didn't do anything for these girls. And it's not only about the people that you see in the film. The guilt is very general. The guilt belongs to a society and to our way of understanding humanity today. I think it's about a social indifference which is present not only in that society, which is very poor, it's present every day in every society. It's an individualism which is present today, and I was wondering, why is it so present in a society like ours where people claim to be very religious? This doesn't really make sense, to have a population that declares itself to be religious in a degree of 80 to 90% in these polls, and at the same time to see this degree of hatred and lack of empathy for the other.
The part that really intrigued me is at the end when Voikița decides to shed her monastery outfit and decides to wear the gray sweater. and then she's the one who actually points out all the details. Is Voikiza herself turning into a rebel?
I don't know if I think that a rebel is too much to say, but she's waking up in a sense. She understands that from this moment on her life is not going to be easy. She has to have all these doubts, and you know that for somebody faithful, having doubts is worse than losing faith completely. And she understands that she doesn't belong to this place any longer. She lost the comfort of having somebody else making decisions for her, so she has to flee and start all over again, feeling guilty. I don't know what will happen next, but it's clear for me that even if police wouldn't have arrived the next day, she would have come. She would have leave and, I don't know, do something else.
So now she's the troubled one.
This is why she's the main character for me in the film, because the main character for me is he who understands something, and it's changed up to the end.
The question is about the shot from behind the character's back and what that means to him.
Actually, it all comes from the original decision of shooting all the scenes in this film and in the films that I do now in just one shot. No matter if the scene has 2 minutes or 10 minutes, the limit of my shots is the reel. I can't shoot longer than 12 minutes. And actually, I think this is the limits of cinema. There's no other limit, but this is the limit. You can't shoot more than these 300 meters. This comes from a way of understanding and cinema. The cinema for me is about how time flows. This is the only thing which is proper to cinema and to no other art. Therefore, I keep in my films this idea that every other moment is important, as in life. I don't cut, I don't use editing, because you can't skip, for example, in life the moments that you don't like and which are irrelevant. You have to live them all. Therefore, if you make films which belong to this kind of realistic way of understanding reality and filmmaking, you will make the effort of shooting like this. Once you shoot with just one shot per scene, this brings a lot of difficulties on the set. You can place the camera in that position where you won't be able to see, like in an American series, everybody talking, facing the camera. It's not like this any longer. You have to learn how to use off camera a lot, and the sound, and how to move the camera. I never move the camera, for example, in this film, unless there's a character that the camera follows. It's never something that the cinematographer will do just out of the blue like this. So little by little you understand your own ethics and poetics, and part of it is that you will decide for each other shot what's more important. Sometimes for me it's more important to see the reaction of somebody that somebody's speaking. He who speaks is already present in the shot with the voice, and he's present over there.
Seeing the film for a second time today, part of what impressed me so much about it is the way it unfolds. As the viewer, you assume it to be a particular kind of movie, telling a particular story, and as it goes on, the layers continue to present themselves and make you begin to question what you had thought about, what you had seen before. My question is how you went about crafting it and pacing it, and also removing the 20 minutes between this and the previous cut, how you went about excising it.
First of all, if you watch the film twice, I have to give you something to drink, That's a great honor. Honestly, it's the greatest compliment you can do to a filmmaker, and even in the same day. Apart from this, I think that the film only needs to have the minimal amount of scenes needed to tell the story. But this time, because the screenplay was very long and the story was very complicated, I wanted to have all the details, so, I make sure that you understand the context in which these people acted. I decided that for once I will be shooting all the scenes that I wrote, or most of them, and decide later on in post-production. I made some, 30, 40 different versions of editing in a very short while, trying to understand what I really need and what I don't. I'm not sure that the final decision is right, but there comes a day as a filmmaker when you have to make the final decision. It belongs to that day, to that moment, I believe that I have some very, very good scenes that I just left away from the film. All of them are going to be like, I don't know, bonuses on the DVD, if you ever want to buy it. And you will see what I gave up. I gave up some of the details, bringing more information about the world of these people, the relationship of the priest with his community, details about the brother, the other choices of such people in society today, because you see that one of the choices is to just leave the country and work abroad. Another choice is to enter the monastery and have a shelter and a family. And I was speaking about some other choices and presenting this very superstitious community belonging to this village and this region in Romania. So it was, details that I thought were very helpful, but which belonged more to a very Romanesque way of storytelling. In film, you need to be concise, so I had to make this decision, and I think it's the right length for the film.
Well, unfortunately, I think that's all the time we have for questions today, but thank you so much for coming today and sharing this fantastic film with us. I really appreciate it.